Hello everyone, my name is Mishka and welcome back to my channel. Now this video is the first in a series of videos where I go into detail about how I got into the foundation program. Now what inspired me to make this first video is that I got a lot of questions from my friends about how I got here in the UK, and most of the time people have already done their research and they already have a general idea of what it takes in order to become a doctor here in the UK. I absolutely love that people want to learn more, so I figured why not discuss the basics, because I certainly didn't know these things when I first applied. So I wanted to start off with some terminology, just so you're familiar with them when I mention them again later on in my later videos. Feel free to skip over this part if you're already familiar. So first up is IMG. You may have already heard this term. So this basically stands for International Medical Graduate. The basic definition of this is someone who was trained in medicine outside of the country that they want to practice medicine in. Basically, anyone who trained outside of the UK and comes to the UK to work as a doctor is an IMG. I am an IMG. I took up my medical training in the Philippines and now I'm working here in the UK. So next up is SHO. And SHO stands for Senior House Officer. In the NHS, there are so many roles that a doctor can have. So this really is an umbrella term for a group of doctors who are in between the most junior doctors, the F1s, and the registrars, the ST3s to ST7. An SHO can be someone who's in core training, could be a trust grade, and even those in their second year foundation program are considered SHOs. So if you hear the term SHO, it doesn't necessarily point to one type of doctor, but rather it's used as an umbrella term for different types of doctors. Registrars. So registrars are the specialist trainees. I guess what would be the equivalent in the US are the residents. So when registrars finish their training, they then become consultants in that specific specialty. Next term is locum. So you won't really hear this term in the beginning when you apply, but you may come across it on your journey through the NHS or the UK medical system. Locum doctor refers to a doctor who is paid a special rate to fill in much needed slots. Let's say, for example, on a certain ward you need at least 3 doctors working in order for the ward to work. But due to unexpected circumstances, one of the doctors fell sick. Now, it's up to the department or the hospital itself to then hire a locum doctor to fill in that slot so that the ward can work as usual. So I believe the equivalent of this term locum doctor is also moonlighting in the US and also in the Philippines. Another term is trust grade. So this is another term that you won't really hear in the beginning, but you may come across later on. A trust grade doctor refers to a doctor who is employed directly by the trust or the hospital, and they usually aren't in any sort of training program. Now to the exciting part, we're going to talk about the foundation program. So if you've not already heard about the FP, this is a 2-year training program that UK medical graduates go through in order to become practicing doctors in the UK. You apply to this via a national online system that will then rank you based on how well you did in medical school and your score in the SJT. I'll get into much more detail about that in my later videos. To give you an idea how UK medical students become doctors in the UK, the medical students first take and pass their final exams. They apply for the foundation program alongside with their provisional registration, then later become FY1s and a year later FY2s. So what is an FY1 and FY2? So the doctors who are in their first year of the foundation program are called FY1s, while the doctors in their second year of foundation program are called FY2s. Now, FY1s, they hold provisional registration, while FY2s hold full registration. And as I mentioned earlier, once you become an FY2, you are also considered an SHO. Now, the foundation program application has 2 stages. The first is an eligibility stage, and the second is the main application. Having graduated outside the UK and the EU, I did have to prove that I was eligible to apply for the foundation program. Mostly what they look for here is if you've graduated from an accredited school, how good your English is, and if you have plans to take the PLAB or if you've already taken it. Now, UK medical graduates are automatically nominated by their medical school, so they don't need to go through the eligibility process. Now we move on to the benefits of the foundation program. So why am I promoting the foundation program? What's so good about it? Honestly, when I first looked at their website to learn how to apply, I was completely turned off. There seemed to be so many requirements just to apply, and while they did advertise that most of the people who did apply would get a slot, I was just afraid that it wouldn't work in my favor, especially applying from abroad. So you can say I was pretty discouraged. Initially, my plan to come to the UK was to first do internship back home and then come to the UK and get full registration. But I was able to get in touch with a pretty famous blogger who I learned was in a similar situation as me. She's half Filipino, half British, also took up medicine in the Philippines, and she was able to get into the foundation program. She told me while you can become a doctor in the UK without the foundation program just the same, you definitely would have an advantage in the sense that in the foundation program, you're well taken care of and can learn a lot about how NHS hospitals work without having as much responsibility as someone who would come in straight in as an SHO. You even have access to supervisors and different sources of guidance in order for you to design your portfolio in a certain way so you can get into a specialization that you want. Whether you're entering the foundation program as an FY1 or an FY2, I personally feel that being labeled as a trainee in a system which is so new to me is really helpful, and it does take a lot of getting used to. And people are a lot more understanding if you do have gaps in your knowledge or you aren't trained in a certain skill. You'll still be able to learn a lot about the practice and even learn from your own mistakes, but at a safe distance where you have less responsibility than someone with a more senior role. When I applied for the FP, at the time, the foundation program did favor those with right to work over those without right to work. Previously, if you didn't have right to work, all those with right to work would be allocated to the slots first. So the chances of you getting into the foundation program as an IMG without right to work were very slim. IMGs were at a catch-22. You couldn't get a job offer without right to work, but you also can't apply for a visa without a job offer. Recently, in the 2021 UK FP applications, this has changed. Now, according to the eligibility guidelines, your right to work status is no longer a factor, and you will then be ranked with all the other applicants. I believe that initially this was the biggest turnoff for IMGs to apply to the foundation program. But now I feel that if you are able to apply and you're interested in becoming part of a training program, then you should deeply consider applying to the FP. But the foundation program is not with many criteria and guidance. There is a huge list of requirements in the eligibility guidance handbook and the main application itself, but I'll be discussing that in further detail in my later videos. Phew. So that was a lot of information, you guys, and we're only halfway through the script. So feel free to take a break, make yourself a cup of tea, maybe pause the video and just try to process everything that I've said so far. And if it was confusing, of course, feel free to rewind or maybe leave a comment and maybe I'll answer it in my next video. Ready? All right, next up, we're gonna talk about the PLAB. If I told you what it stood for, I don't think you would really picture medical exam, but it is a board exam for IMGs to take in order to become doctors in the UK. The PLAB has two steps. The first step is a written test and the second step is an OSCE type exam. So unlike other countries, the UK doesn't really have a standardized exam or a standard board exam for everyone to take in order to practice in the UK. So as I mentioned earlier, UK medical graduates would take and pass their final exams and then apply for provisional registration to get into the foundation program. Whereas if you were an IMG, you'd have to take PLAB 1 and then PLAB 2 and then apply for full or provisional registration. However, on the GMC website, there is a little announcement about the UKMLA. They say it's coming out in 2024 and not many of us know what it's gonna be about. Maybe it's a mix of the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, you know, nobody knows. But what we do know is that both UK medical graduates and IMGs will have to take it in order to practice in the UK. According to the GMC website, the PLAB 1 is a 180 item multiple choice exam. So if you read on the GMC website, this is the part where you have to prove your knowledge as a doctor. So the PLAB 2 is an 18-station OSCE type exam. Now, most review centers and even the GMC have said that by this point, if you've passed PLAB 1, you've already proven your knowledge. And this part of the exam is really just for you to show that you're a safe, professional, and a friendly doctor rather than a doctor who knows a lot of things. So you can think of this more as like an interview. Just pretend that the examiners are your future boss and you can just act the best way that you can and treat the patient properly. Now, in order to book the PLAB, you need to make a GMC account. So to make a GMC account, you just have to put in the details of your medical training as well as your IELTS or OET score. So the GMC requires that your IELTS be at least 7.0 in all domains, but at least 7.5 in the average of all those domains. And as for your OET, they should all be at least a B. But be sure to constantly check the GMC website because these things can change without any prior announcement. So once you pass your PLAB 1, you can then book your PLAB 2. And once you pass PLAB 2, you can then apply for registration with the GMC. So I'll be talking about how I prepared for PLAB 1, PLAB 2, and IELTS in later videos. So how much is this all going to cost? So this is actually a very loaded question and different people can give you different answers. But let's cut down to the basics, shall we? So first you have the PLAB 1, which is £250, and the review for that can cost anywhere between £50 to £500, depending on how hard you want to review. The PLAB 2 exam fee is £850, and the review for that can cost anywhere between £300 and £700, depending on how and where you review. And another thing's for sure, the GMC, as of yet, has not opened any PLAB 2 test centers outside of the UK. So that means if you do want to take your PLAB 2, it will most likely be in their test center in Manchester. That means there's an additional cost of flights from wherever you are, plus accommodation just to take your PLAB 2 exam. So with all that in mind, you can really start to see where all these things add up, and they add up fast. And I haven't even included how much an IELTS or an OET exam would cost, or how much getting your degree verified would do. I myself had just graduated medicine when I applied for all this, so I had to rely on my mom to finance me. I was so lucky to have her support. So to get a better idea of how much all of this cost me, I'll be posting a separate video about how much I spent on all the applications and exams for my PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 journey. I think I'm gonna stop there for now. Hopefully I was able to clear up a few general things before I delve deeper into the application process itself. If you do have any more questions, feel free to contact me on any of my social media handles, which I'll be posting at the end of this video. And maybe I'll be able to answer your questions on my next one. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you're kept up to date on when I next post. On my next video, I'll be talking more in depth about the foundation program application and how to get your eligibility application ready. So this was fun. Thank you all for watching.